All right, guys, we are off and running with 2021 with a really cool guest. I'm super excited for you guys to get to listen to some of his stories about working in the industry. He has worked on multiple different shows. He's got a very cool sounding film coming out here this year, knock on wood, coronavirus considering. Actor, director, writer, Timothy director Timothy McLaughlin. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. How's it going, Jimmy?
Good, man. And this right off the get, we gotta go back in time, forward in time, but 2021, this movie that is, like I said, hopefully coming out, coronavirus permitting, that I know you guys are in pre-production of right now. But it sounds really cool, man. The Warrior of the Eight Flags, the premise of this FBI guy's kind of making an agreement to help take out these crime syndicates or crime things, but he's making an agreement with a guy responsible for his own son's death, which is pretty wild. This film sounds like it's going to be filled with action, and it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the pandemic really hit it. We were supposed to get into production by now, but everything got shut down over the summer. So we are kind of sort of on standby like a lot of other productions are right now. As a matter of fact, they're starting to go into rewrites and even doing more script changing. And there may be new casting as well, because, when you cancel a production, or not cancel it, but postpone it, you've got to reline all the actors back up to be ready to go. And some of the actors already are tagged to do other projects. So yeah, it's this whole mess last year really screwed a whole bunch of productions up for us.
It's definitely interesting getting to talk to actors, directors, producers, all the way down the line, getting to talk to them as everything was happening like a year ago right now.
Yeah.
And obviously in the thick of it. And now hopefully coming out of it with the vaccine and stuff. It's been, the entertainment industry has been pretty wild.
Yeah.
To
say the least. It has been it's been just incredibly unpredictable. That's basically the right word to say it. I mean, a lot of productions had to go into, basically a dark. They had to go dark. And so now that they've come out of it, they actually started redoing some of the shows, or they started to get more active back in August and September with all of the protocols in place.
Right.
And now things are starting to get a little bit better. But again, there's still a lot of mandatory this and mandatory that, and a lot of smaller, low budget film companies can't afford to take those precautions yet. That it's a huge expense. I mean, what was it? They went back to filming the last Mission Impossible movie, and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read the story. He had a couple of run-ins with some of the crew. About them not following the protocols and stuff.
We listened to his, I don't know if it was the first or the second outburst on his that someone I'm assuming had like just whipped out their camera and pressed play. Like he's given it to them pretty good, but the one side of the coin of that is he's such an ass. How is he talking to them like that? And I'm like, you have to understand, man, he is the voice of everyone who's trying to go back to work in this industry right now.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not following those protocols, and then for whatever reason, I don't know how the inner workings of, like a restaurant compared to a film set, if they have like plants that are going to go in there and be like Mission Impossible, whatever number we're on now, they're not following the COVID safety. They got to shut it all down. But you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars at that point.
Well, I mean, not only that, but Tom Cruise put hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money into the film. In fact, I was reading, I don't know if you read this, but I was reading how he personally rented 2 giant cruise ships during the production
Oh,
to what do you call it? House all the cast and crew and keep them all isolated in one place. So
wow.
he spent so much money on that, and I'd be pretty upset too if I was dealing with some out of pocket money on something, and nobody was following the protocols, because they could shut them down at any time.
Yeah, and that's the thing where everybody is clamoring for some kind of an escape.
Yeah.
Like when Wonder Woman came out over Christmas, like everybody was waiting for that movie to come out.
Yeah.
And so now it's interesting where we're all looking for that escape, but then you don't, like, I don't know. It's a thing where you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Like, play by the rules, and then hopefully this thing gets to get made and we get the escape.
Well, I was looking forward to seeing the new Ghostbuster movie.
Oh,
God, supposed to come out in July.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that franchise, except for the last one they did. I wasn't too happy about the reboot. But I'm connected with that film through a live stage performance that I used to do at Universal Studios in Orlando, where
you were one of the Ghostbusters. You were on the show?
Yeah, I was. I played the Rick Moranis character, who is the accountant, the Louis Tully Rick Moranis character. It was a great show. Ran for about 4 or 6 years.
Man, I gotta tell you, it's one of those things. I mean, I grew up with theme parks, Disney, Universal, Six Flags, all that stuff. And one of the oldest memories I have still to this day is, I don't even know how old I was, but the imagery of that show with all the Pepper's ghost effects, and then Stay Puft coming up at the top of the thing. Like, I can remember being in that sound stage and like, this is awesome. Like, that's pretty cool. You got to work on that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. And when it closed, I moved on to some of the other shows at the theme park. They had a Hercules and Xena show at the time. That TV series was pretty big, so I worked on that show. I worked on the horror makeup show. I worked on the Barney show. Oh my God, wow. that was a fun show, to say the least. But
that sounds like the deep roots. Have you been to Halloween Horror Nights then?
Oh, I performed in several of the shows over the Halloween Horror Nights years. In fact, my wife and I, is where I went and met my wife at Universal. We actually did the first one, and It was fantastic. It was a blast. So I got to play many different characters during those couple of weeks that they had that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife was the famed rat lady. She was the only gal that they put in a coffin, and then they loaded it up with a bunch of rats. And during it was like a haunted maze that the kids walked through. And at one point they walk over this big giant glass flooring.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then the light goes on and she's in there like a sort of a zombie trying to get out of her coffin. So
already in my mind, I'm like, we got to get Tim and his wife back on for another podcast down the road. That is a whole nother subdivision of our listeners of this show is Halloween Horror Nights. Like we've done meetups, we've done all kinds of stuff, man. Like
nice.
You that obviously leads you into the film industry from the theme park industry, which it seems like a lot of people, man, go and work for Universal still when they're not in a film and stuff like that. Seems very like back and forth. A lot of people who have been on our podcast even seem to have like worked in Universal in LA or Orlando in some capacity, and it's like it seems like it opens a lot of doors doing that.
Yeah. Oh, I used to work with. I don't say I worked directly with her, but some of you guys might remember Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh yeah.
She worked mostly over at the Nickelodeon studios, and I got a chance to work over there a little bit from time to time, but mostly was in the rest of the main park. But she worked over there, and we had lots of conversations over the years. Wayne Brady did a lot of the stage shows right before he moved out to California. He was doing the it was called the Monster Show. It was a monster like review.
Oh, the Beetlejuice show. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. The Beetlejuice and then his monster crew of singers and dancers. Yeah, he was in that show before he moved out to LA. So yeah, a lot of great names came out of Universal Studios. Mm-hmm.
You when you've gotten into acting on film, you have gotten to do kind of a wide array of different types of shows, as far as like Everybody Hates Chris.
Yep.
Monk, which I've followed that show pretty avidly. Like Tony Shalhoub as Monk, that was a fun ride for a while. Yep. But do you have in particular a certain style of acting that you like to do? Because this film that will hopefully come out, the Warrior of the Eight Flags, or Warrior of Eight Flags, seems pretty stark differently as far as subject matter and the way that it is going to end up being presented on screen to something like Everybody Hates Chris, which is a turn on and laugh like type of a thing. What do you like to look for in a acting role?
Well, I always loved comedy. I was always drawn to comedy, and I always managed to do it relatively well. But the fact that I'm able to do serious drama roles is really something that I've been drawn to lately. And I'm hoping to get into more Westerns.
Oh, wow.
I would love to do right now. One of my favorite shows is Yellowstone. My wife and I have been binge watching that for a while, and really just love that show. The writing is fantastic. The acting is great. I love how they also incorporate a lot of real people into that show. I mean, there's a lot of real ropers and real cow people, cowgirls, and cowboys, and barrel riders and rodeoers, and they all sort of intermingle and they mesh in with the show. And I think that's really awesome, and let's see, the Warrior of Eight Flags, I haven't received final script on it yet. I was supposed to last year, but I'm still waiting anxiously to find out how it's really going to turn out. So it's a mystery to me right now as well. So it's very exciting. I also did a television pilot a few years back, and it was a suspense drama where I got to play a real creepy character. And I have one of the pictures on my IMDb page. And if you can imagine, all this facial hair is gone. They actually put a wig on me because I have no hair. And I played this creepy pedophile teacher. And it was totally something that was way out of my comfort zone. I was not used to playing roles like that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it's great to be able to stretch your acting mind and to play all those different types of characters, from, comedy, nerdy characters to creepy, assailants or bad guys, if you want to call it that. And that, like I said, now I'm trying to get into more rugged films, Westerns. I like the Outlander series too. That was a great
Outlander was, that was a pretty rad show.
Yeah.
The thing about playing something that you may not, obviously be too familiar with something like a pedophile teacher, that role, at least for me, coming out of film school and acting in other friends' films and stuff, whenever there was a role like that they wanted me to play, for whatever reason, to do a role that is completely not you personality wise,
Yeah.
it was almost like a sense of therapy to it when you're in the groove of it, I should say. It's always kind of cool to be able to escape's not the right word, but maybe put some emotion that isn't normally placed in everyday life into the certain character. So that's pretty cool that you've gotten to do so many different ones.
Yeah. Yeah, no, to be able to do those things, and it can be tough. I mean, there's some roles that are really hard to pin down as an actor if you're not willing to take the chains off, take the leap or whatever. If you're not willing to get out of your safe and comfort zone, Heath Ledger did exactly that for the Batman movie, and he had a hard time coming back from it too. A lot of actors, especially the ones that really gravitate towards method acting, they have a really tough time coming out of characters that are really, challenging from a standpoint to what their normal persona is. And actors like Tom Hanks, when he did Castaway, I read an interview from him that he actually still deals with diabetes, I think it is, because of what happened with him with weight loss and weight gain at that time.
Yeah.
Same thing with Matthew McConaughey from Dallas Buyers Club. And you get these roles where you have to like physically and psychologically change, and they take a toll on your body and your mentality.
I would imagine that. I mean, you mentioned you said Heath Ledger, but the other one, the big one, the opposite of him, Christian Bale. I mean, the stuff that guy puts his body through for a role is pretty.
Oh yeah, yeah. I loved him in what was it, Hustler. The Hustle.
Oh God, The Hustle. Yeah. And American Psycho, he's pretty fantastic in. He
was young though when he did that, so
yeah.
Usually people can recover from roles like that, but when you're my age, so to speak, then it can be difficult. You just have to stay in great physical shape. You have to eat healthy, and you have to really train your mind that it's just a role. And I know that's hard because a lot of method actors, they really dive into the role, and when they leave the set, they bring that role home a lot, and they try to like evolve into that person. And that can be scary, especially for someone like Heath Ledger's character as the Joker, or and same with Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, the mental toll that it takes on an actor, not a lot of people understand that.
With you going and breaking into acting, was this a passion at a very young age, that you knew you wanted to be in the entertainment industry, or what was it that kind of paved the way for you going from live entertainment, theme parks, and then progressing into film? Was it a passion, and then you got the job at Universal, and then you were kind of like, I really want to see where it goes, or how did it all transpire?
Yeah, experiences, just life experiences. When I originally started to focus full time on acting, I was in college, so I was doing stage and theater, and you run the gamut. You do Shakespeare, and you do Sam Shepard, and you do all of those wonderful playwrights. And then when you get out into the real world, it's literally a completely different situation.
Right.
The live stage shows, I would do 6 shows a day at Universal Studios with the Ghostbusters Show, 6 shows a day, heavily. And they were 30-minute shows, and they were, they were pretty physical. But I got cast in a short film, not a short film, a B movie, and a low budget film. And it was produced by Jonathan Crane. It was in conjunction with one of the colleges in Orlando. And yet it had a pretty good size cast. I mean, I performed with Ed Begley Jr. and Tyne Daly and Sally Kellerman. And I mean, there was just a large group of, top-notch veteran actors.
Yeah.
And so after I got finished filming in that movie, the producer, Jonathan Crane, who, by the way, was John Travolta's manager, producer. I mean, he did all the Look Who's Talking movies. He
Oh,
did,
wow.
yeah, Swordfish. I mean, all the later John Travolta movies, Jonathan Craig was a part of. And so he sat down, he told me, he says, you got to get out to LA. He
Mm.
says, there's a lot of work out there and you can absolutely, you know, make hay. you can make a name for yourself. So I did. I packed up my wife and my 3-year-old son, and we moved on out to California in 1999. And literally a couple of months later, the actor strike hits.
Wow.
So that was a huge struggle coming out here. I had several commercials running. I had an episode of what was it? Mortal Kombat. Back then, and the Mortal Kombat series was going on. And I had also just completed the miniseries From the Earth to the Moon for HBO.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks. And I was just devastated because I couldn't do any work out here in California. And for about a year and a half, you know, I was just a regular Joe looking for work for, you know, as much as I could. I mean, I was doing everything from flower delivery to delivering pizzas and, you know, painting. I was, you know, just trying to make ends meet out here. It was a whole different life.
Man, that is a hell of an arc. It's a movie in its own right, really, because you go from the Universal gig to getting films, you know, that film in Florida, told that you have this promise, go book these jobs, and then the strike happens. I mean, I remember that Earth to the Moon. I think Tom Hanks was big on that because that's around the time that he was all into Apollo 13.
With
that movie.
He was so excited to do that movie that he literally put together this project, and he produced it, and he brought in just like a who's who of famous directors, you know. I mean, I got to work with Frank Marshall. And Frank Marshall did, of course, he produced all the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies. I mean, the guy just is an icon in the industry.
Right.
And every other episode, they had different directors. Like Sally Field directed one of those episodes.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. She starred in one. She directed them. But the directors, I think John Turteltaub actually directed one as well.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really a huge epic miniseries. And the coolest thing I remember out of it, besides getting to meet Tom Hanks, but the biggest thing I took away from it is I got to actually meet one of the Apollo astronauts, and you know, we sat for like hours and talked. His name was Dave Scott, and he was in a lot of the later Apollo missions where he actually got to drive the rover on the moon and stuff like that. So he shared a lot of stories. Yeah.
That's really cool. The thing too, that if you are listening to this and you're non-union, I'm thinking of my wife, who is in the, you know, she deals with her union being a school teacher, and with all the, you know, the teetering back and forth, especially last year. I mean, to get over there, and then I'm assuming you got SAG-AFTRA, and you were in the union, and then that strike happens. I mean, man, that is a gut punch.
Oh yeah.
The process of joining that union, the SAG union, is not like just signing up and being like, I want to be in the union either. So you know, to not be able to work when you are in the heart of it, that, I mean, it's like you lived the 18-year-old moving out of mom and dad's house, struggling to provide version of the Hollywood story as well, while you were waiting for the actor strike to get over, which is wild.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the way it worked out. And then my second son came along literally not long after we moved out of California. I mean out of Florida. So we moved to Florida, and within a year he was born. So
wow,
it was pretty tough. And at the time, my oldest son was 4. So during the strike, I said, you know what? If I'm not going to work, I'm going to put into work. So I knew enough people in the industry, casting directors and agents and stuff. So we started to send him out on auditions, and he started to get a lot of work. I mean, it all went to his college fund, which was great. I was like, let's get your college education paid for before you do things. So, and then he learned a lot about the industry as well. And then my youngest son, as he got older, he followed again. And for maybe about 4 or 5 years, the two of them were doing commercials and getting involved and knowing exactly what I was doing and how things worked in my life. So
that's really cool, is to have them get that exposure, and then they can decide whether or not it's for them at a later time, but to get them to actually see the inner workings of it, to comprehend everything that goes into production.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool to do.
Yeah. They got their union cards, and, so that's a good thing to have regardless. You never know when it'll come in handy. And they just, it's there if they want to pursue it. My oldest one, he's actually a musician. He does sort of like DJ stuff, and he plays guitar, and so he's a musician, and he's got that card to go to work if he needs to, or if he wants to.
With the on the other side of coronavirus, there's been a lot of different filmmaking techniques that have come into the limelight. I think the biggest one that I have, just as a major nerd, kind of just been awestruck by how they did it, was that I think they call it the Vault at Lucasfilm, where they filmed a lot of the Mandalorian at, where now we're to the point where we don't need to necessarily go to a cafe in Paris. We can just video map. It's like the holodeck in Star Trek from back in the 90s. And the film crew is literally working within these LED screens to dress and then film within there with motion tracking as he's walking behind. That whole concept is pretty wild to me. Is there a certain filmmaking thing that has come out of as of late that is really kind of like, damn, that's how they did that type of a thing for you?
No, I don't think I haven't been able to. I have a friend that's worked on Mandalorian. He's done a lot. He did a lot of the lighting for a lot of the scenes, for a lot of the episodes. But for myself, no. The last couple of years have been a sort of a reshuffling of my acting career. I've done a couple of short films. I've got I took care of my kids and my family at one point in time, because that was the thing that needed to be taken care of. And balancing a family and a marriage with an acting career, there's a reason why a lot of these Hollywood couples just don't make it in the marriage business. The fact that they can't balance it and they can't prioritize it, or they do prioritize it and they prioritize acting as their number one thing. I've always prioritized my family and my marriage over acting. So when any kinds of situations, crises, or whatever have come up in my family, acting just goes on the back burner until I can take care and handle what needs to be handled. So the last couple of years, from I'd say 2015 to 2018 or 19, things were focused on my family at the time. I actually stopped acting for about a year and a half and coached my son's golf team. They needed a golf coach. So I said, sure, I'll commit to that. And I coached the boys' high school golf team. And then after that was done and he graduated from high school and went off to college, that's when things started to go, okay, now it's time to work on me and my career and really come into it 110%. I don't have any more kids. And my wife was like, hey, you go do what you have to do. You've been sacrificing long enough. So we switched gears.
Damn, man, that's pretty refreshing to hear someone who has acted and worked in the industry say because you do get that instance of, like, here's a cute picture of them, like, lined up in front of a step and repeat, but you don't get a real feeling like what it is behind closed doors. And yeah, Entertainment Tonight and everything, they always cover the, this couple's breaking up and they're citing such and such reasons, but it's not very often we get a, what, he decided to step away so he could coach his son's golf team for a year and a half. That's pretty rad. That's a good that's a good story to be told, man. It's all about prioritizing what matters the most. Mm-hmm. And sure, try to come up and progress the career. Not even speaking really to you, just whoever's listening to us talk right now. But man, like, the important things are the important things. So that's pretty rad, man.
Yeah, you do. I mean, what do you want your legacy to be when you move on? What do you want to leave your kids? Do you want to leave your kids an existing real life memory, or just something that's on a DVD, or shows up on the TV every once in a while? There's you can sit there and say, oh yeah, that's my dad in the movie, but I don't really know who he is.
Yeah,
because he spent so much time away from my family, and I really never got a chance to see any of that a lot. It's everybody has to prioritize. There's another great actor out there named Neil McDonough. He does exactly that. He's working a lot these days. He's a wanted man by the film industry. This guy is very popular. He was on Yellowstone not long ago, but he's always famous for playing the bad guy. Just check him out, Neil McDonough. He's a great actor, fantastic actor, but even a better family man. The guy is committed to his family, and I am just, I want to call him and I want to talk to him and I'll say, hey, okay, you're working a lot, and yet I know you prioritize your family first. I go, there's got to be roles that you're turning down so that you can have that balance.
Right.
And I do. I tip my proverbial cap to him. The guy is just an amazing human being. So
the shows that you did when you were doing, the Monk and Everybody Hates Chris, and even the Mortal Kombat one, which I think I have a vague recollection of that show, just because it had the same kind of appeal and feel to it as like Power Rangers at the time.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did.
And but on any of those sets, were you pretty taken aback by the fact that here you are, or do you feel like you were more comfortable having come from doing the work at Universal?
I think that prepared me a lot for that. Because I've worked with a lot of pretty well-known actors. On the episode of Monk, I got to work opposite Alfred Molina, who played Dr. Octavius in the second Spider-Man movie, and very, very well-known, very famous veteran British actor on stage and screen. But I got to work with him, one of the nicest, most humble guys I've ever met. What a great guy. I mean, I've been blessed that the actors that I have worked with have had almost a similar approach to acting as I have. And that's the fact is we're just employees. We're doing a job. Granted, it's a job that we absolutely love, and it's something that we're very passionate about. But when the job is over, we're unemployed. I turned to him one time and I asked him, I said, so what are you doing next? And he says, I don't know. I'm going to be unemployed, part-time actor. And I said, you know what? I says, we all are part-time actors. And he said, you're right. You never know where your next role is going to be, if it's going to be your next role or if this is your last role. So you have to treat every role as if it's your last role. And it really did. It gave me some humility, and you learn everything. If you don't learn something from every role that you play and carry that with you to the next performance, you're not going to grow as an actor. You're always going to stay in that very narrow field of capability. And I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of actors that have had similar approaches to the craft. So as far as being nervous, the nerves are actually more about forgetting your lines. It's but you have to understand everybody is worried about that. I mean, I'll never forget. I was doing the episode of Everybody Hates Chris, and I came out of my trailer. I was on the Paramount backlot, and as I came out, I looked across the way, and coming out of one of the sound stages was Tom Hanks, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Julia Roberts. Wow. And when they came out of the sound stages, they were doing a table read for Charlie Wilson's War. And when they came out of the sound stage, all three of them had completely different demeanors. Philip Seymour Hoffman comes out. He wasn't out 2 feet, and he was lighting a cigarette up and walking over and leaning up against the side of the sound stage, just like this, just smoking. Julia Roberts went over to the right and was immediately met by her assistant, and the two of them were talking about whatever they think they were probably going to do either the next day or the next week. And Tom Hanks just walks out and goes straight across to the craft service table and grabs some food. And as I'm walking, I bump into him, and I turned. I said, "Hey, Tom, how's it going?" And nicest guy you've ever met. He says, "Hey, how's it going?" And then he stops and he says, "I know you." He goes, "You look familiar. I know you." And I said, "Well, we did. We kind of bumped into each other a few years back working on Earth to the Moon." That's right. That's right. And he was very, very perceptive. And I thought that was really cool that he knew and recognized me. I think it was about 6 or 8 years later. So
that's pretty rad. That's a good story to tell.
Yeah. But the fact is that every actor in real life as a human being is a totally different person and has a totally different approach to their own craft. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, that was just proof.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because being blessed to be able to do this show and the podcasting, but run the programming for a couple conventions here in Northern California, definitely you get to have those kind of side discussions with some pretty well-known actors and actresses, just to gain that comfortability before you walk out on stage in front of an auditorium full of people.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to see how you turn it on and you turn it off, and you do it, hearing you come from a background in theater. Most film people have dabbled in theater to some extent. I have theater background. Most of the people that were in class with me at LA Film have all worked in that to some regard, whether undergrad classes, high school, whatever.
Yeah.
And when you walk out on stage in front of a live audience, you just kind of know, and you're feeding off of the energy of the people. But you also recognize, like, when you come through that doorway or curtain, or whatever the set design is, like, it's like you turn it on now type of a thing. There's no real, okay, they're setting up the camera and they're dialing the shot in, and here I go. It's like, you better, like, you're on instantaneously. So
yep.
To see them kind of do that before they walk on stage at a Comic-Con, like, okay, like, I need to be who they think I am, almost, type, as far as how I answer questions or whatever. And there's been a few where I'm like, man, just like, we're just us up here type of thing. And I think a lot of people will gravitate towards that 9 times out of 10 than they will, like, okay, I'm trying to be this character from this movie. Like Robert Downey in a conversation, I think will gain so much more fandom and appreciation if he's Robert Downey, not Tony Stark type of a thing. So that is kind of cool to hear that, Tom Hanks is just the way that you said that. Oh yeah, like, you can totally imagine Tom Hanks having never met the guy, probably never will meet the guy, but his speech pattern and the recollection of which he said that, I can see Tom Hanks saying that. Just like, it makes you, it kind of opens that door as to, okay, when he's talking about a certain experience. Like that's Tom Hanks talking. That's not Tom Hanks, the PR guy, or Tom Hanks trying to sell you something. That's Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always certain people that are going to behave a certain way based on how they were raised, by whatever their family is, or whatever trying times or struggles that they were through in real life. The saying that my teacher gave us is art imitates life. So anything that we do in front of a camera or on stage is always a reflection of life experiences. And as a human being, when we talk to other people, that's also our life's experiences in the past being projected on whoever we talk to, whether it's how polite you are to people, your demeanor, your confidence, or your shyness, or whatever it might be. Being able to communicate that way, like Tom Hanks did, it makes me feel so much better about a lot of the acting and a lot of the industry. Yeah, you're always going to have the people that you think that they're better than you, or you're better than, you have those struggles on set between A-list actors.
Yeah.
There'll be an A-list actor who'll be like, yeah, I'll just eat with the crew, I don't care. And then there'll be an A-list actor, no, you're going to deliver my food to my trailer, and you're going to have this type of food there, and this is what I eat, and da 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 da.
Right.
I think those are the more insecure people, but I'm not going to judge anybody by it. But I do feel that people that make more demands on other people are the ones that are the most insecure or vulnerable, as far as the industry and as far as life. I mean, you come across people in a bar, you could sit there, and that's the other thing. I love watching people. I love to watch them because I can come up with characters. I can come up with emotions, that I can relate when I'm doing a project. But I love watching people because everybody is so different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a different demeanor, a different cadence, a different way that they present themselves. And I just think it's fascinating that there's not one human being on this planet that's alike at all. You may say, oh, he's like your doppelganger, or he's like this. You know what? Even twins, even identical twins, have separate, distinct characteristics about them. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, the thing that always gets blown out of proportion, is the Olsen twins from Full House. And just hearing you say that right now, there was an interview that came across my feed of them, just because their sister is, skyrocketing, part of the Marvel cinematic universe. But seeing Ashley and Mary Kate side by side, you're totally right, because now they have grown into themselves, and they are not little Michelle anymore, where you saw them on set. There's no way I'd be able to tell them apart. Now they're totally distinguishable. But the self-confidence thing, the self-assurance thing, I would say that's totally a life thing. But I could totally imagine that on set, if the term prima donna or what have you. I can imagine that it's probably lonely in that trailer once everybody is gone, if they're going to be making a bunch of requests / demands.
Yeah, I'd say it's more like they're lonely when they lay their head down at night, because if they're constantly bombarded every day, they're never alone. Which sometimes, if they get upset about, they want to be alone, and then when they're finally alone, they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to process it.
Yeah.
So, but hey, everybody's got their way. Everybody's got their passion in life. Everybody's got their path to follow. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell what's right or what's wrong. But, because my path, a lot of people will say, hey, man, you should have been more committed to your acting during those 3 or 4 years that you stepped away. And, and I said, well, that would have been your choice maybe. But, we all have to do what we have to do is best for ourselves as human beings. And, I would do it all over again. I'd do the same thing. I lost my father. That was another thing. I was very close with my father, and he passed away back in 2001. And that was like the year after. It was like, I get out here, the actor strike, the writer strike, and then my dad passes away. And I literally did. I stepped away from acting for another year, and I did some screenwriting. I just kind of sort of kept to myself for a little while.
Sure.
I needed that time to heal, and I know that if I had tried to perform, it wouldn't have been up to my standards.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's fair. That's something that I think when you hit a crisis point like that, like the mind needs time, but more importantly, like the soul needs time to just kind of cope and wrap your mind around the fact that moving forward, like we got to adjust to the new, I hate to say new normal just because everyone throws out new normal now with all the coronavirus, but it is like when you hit a crisis point like that. I remember my best friend passed away in a car accident in the middle of starting college, going into the local college, and I mean it literally happened 2 weeks into classes, and I had told my parents, I don't know if I can do this right now because this is a shitload of stuff to handle. Again, the theater background. So, I mean, in college, immediately when the semester starts, it's kind of like, hey, this is what we're doing. Here's the script.
Yeah.
I start memorizing it. We're rolling this out in October because our school, we had like the fall production, winter production, spring musical, and then like an end of the year, like a showcase where we could write and do a thing. So it was like, we are immediately into the groove. And I'm like, I don't think I can go and try to act like a villager in Frankenstein right now, knowing like that is what is on the other side of, in the parking lot, like all that is going to come and hit me in the face type of a thing. And so I totally relate to, you got to deal with some stuff, every once in a while before you can try to, to entertain or do whatever. That's a life lesson for no matter whatever avenue you're choosing. At some point, there's going to come a time, I think, where you hit the realization factor that like, hey, like I need to take a time out for a minute and kind of address some stuff. Otherwise, it's that whole snowball effect, man. Like if
it is.
It away, and then it becomes a bigger thing. Who would have known? Like if you wouldn't have taken that time out to remember your dad 10 years down the line, there's some unseen thing at the moment, but you have to go back and do even more work on yourself to address whatever that was. So to get you the time that you needed to handle something like that and then come back. That's the thing about acting too, is acting isn't going anywhere. Like it's not something that you will never be able to not dive into. Like jobs may pass, sure, but like you are an actor. You will always be able to act.
Yeah, it's unfortunately Hollywood is they don't see it that way. Hollywood is always about what have you done lately?
Yeah.
And it was really a tough adjustment moving out to California, because when I was finished with the actor strike and the writer strike and then my father, meeting with a new agent and getting a new cast and a new agent they say to you, okay, well, what do you have playing right now? What's on TV that I could see you in right now? And you have to sit there and say, well, I really don't have anything because I haven't done anything since 1999 or whatever. It's been 3 years. Right. 2 years, and they sit there and they go, ooh, that's going to be really hard, because when you went away, 10 people that look exactly like you just swooped right in and took up all of your roles and all your auditions and everything. So it's a tough balance if you step away, that's really actually what happened last year with this pandemic. I literally had to reinvent myself. All of this fun stuff right here and everything. I didn't have a beard per se. I had a goatee, but I didn't have anything like this. And I said to my wife, I said, I gotta change it up. As an actor, you're always having to reinvent yourself, just like musical artists. Madonna has literally had to reinvent herself every 5 or 6 years or so. She's always had to reinvent herself. As an actor, you have to do the same thing. And a lot of actors, they'll have like a sort of a blip of fame, and then they'll disappear for like maybe 15 or even 20 years until they come into their own, where they've created another persona that is desirable, that is popular, that resonates with its audience. And that's where I'm at right now. I've literally said, okay, well, we're leaving all of this stuff behind that I used to be as an actor, and we're going to recreate all this new stuff. And what is this new stuff? Oh, I want to be, I want to work in Westerns, or I want to work in suspense thriller movies, or let's go work on a zombie movie or something. Let's go do this. That's something that as an actor you have to. It's a timing thing. You have to sit there and go, okay, what is the public really, really loving right now? And I mean, they've been going through their Game of Thrones addictions, their Walking Dead addictions, even their what's his name, Breaking Bad. It's like, what's the flavor of the month genre? And right now, you've got Cobra Kai, you've got The Boys, you've got all of these other genres that are becoming popular again. So as an actor, you have to sit there and say, okay, I've got to present myself to a casting director in a way that's going to make them think, hey, this guy can be on this show, or this guy can do that show. So so I'm brushing up on my Scottish brogue, so I can, hey, I'd like to be an Outlander, the and the Westerns, So I've done it. So I've gone through some photo shoots where I've changed my look, I've changed my appearance, and I've also started training in different ways. Up until a year ago, I wasn't a huge equestrian, So you dive right in. All right, I'm going to take horseback riding lessons. I'm going to learn how to rope. I'm going to learn how to, maybe shoe a horse, which is still something I got to learn how to do. But you have to take on those challenges as a human being so that you can translate them into your acting.
Going all in as far as committing to the Western show, man, learning how to shoe a horse, that's some heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm trying to pick the right time, and that'll be fun to do. I approach everything as an exciting experience, and I absorb it, and I really enjoy it as much, even when it's not enjoyable. I mean, Mike Rowe. I think about him with the dirty jobs and everything that he does, and you sit there and you go, he's got to not like this stuff, but on camera, he seems like he's just
loving it
all in and enjoying it to a point. But you have to approach everything like that. And the next thing is going to be, like I said, roping and shoeing, and I'm even starting to take some boxing training from a friend of mine who's a boxing trainer and a boxer. So every skill you can possibly create is another, it's another tool that you can use for whatever roles might come along.
Well, the beard right now, man, I gotta say is very. I can totally imagine like that turn of the century gang of New York time period boxing ring with the beard. You got the upcurl right now.
Yeah, I got that going on right now. I've also, I watch a lot of other actors, and like during the Outlander series, there's a great actor on that show called Graham McTavish who played McDougal. You know, he has the whole, his is whiter than mine, but he's got the whole beard, mustache thing going on there. And likewise, a lot of the other characters. So you have to present yourself in such a way to the casting directors that they're going to sit there and say, all right, I know I can see you in this role, and I know that the audience can see you in this role. Now let's see whether you can perform in this role. So it really is a twofold thing. And sometimes sometimes the directors and producers, they don't see that. I was just watching Transporter 3. You've seen that movie with Jason Statham. The actress that got cast as the female lead in that had never acted a day in her life.
Wow.
And she came over from, I think it was Russia. And I believe the writer of the series saw her and said, okay, I'm going to give you acting lessons and you're going to be the star of my show. It happens. I mean, that kind of discovery, it happens. And, hey, that's a way to go. But most of the time, you want to hire somebody that's prepared, ready to go, ready to act, and that has the preparation to do it. So, but I'll tell you, I give her full marks. I mean, she did a good job for, what she had to work with.
Yeah, those movies, Fast and Furious movies, after number 3 or 4 or 2, those are just fun popcorn movies, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch The Rock bicep curl in a helicopter with a truck hitch. Like, okay, man, but I'll go watch it.
Hobbs and Shaw. That was just action movies, Marvel movies that you want to escape.
Yeah.
And I really think that's really what I've always had a passion about is I don't want to do, although the roles are great, I don't want to do, a lot of these actors, they want to do controversial roles. They want to get out there and they want to, I want to play this role because it'll have people talking and debating and this and that and the other. And I love doing those roles. Those roles are great. But as an actor, ever since I was a kid, I've always just wanted to make people laugh, cry, smile. I wanted to bring out their emotions. I wanted them to walk out of the movie theater going, man, that was a great movie, not going out and going, well, that guy should have done this or that guy should have done that. Or
right.
I didn't like that relationship. I don't want them going out criticizing or judging. I want them leaving saying, wow, I just, for 2.5 hours, I was away from reality and I was completely in a fantasy realm that I fully enjoyed. So
I think that is what it's all about, man. If you're trying to make movies or be an actor or actress, I think it's all about crafting those worlds, escapism to hopefully produce for others to enjoy as well as you did making it. But Tim, where can everybody kind of keep tabs on you moving forward to see now as it is? Hopefully, Warrior Flags goes into production soon. But where are you at, man? Where everyone can keep track and see what you're up to?
I actually left Twitter a short while ago because, like I said, that whole site got into a big giant mess. There was
an interesting crowd.
A lot of hate going on out there. People get into conversations that are just not very healthy.
Right.
And so I left Twitter, but I am on Instagram where I post a lot of my photos of whether it's me and my family out having a good day at the beach or some of my new headshots, some of my branding if I'm starting to brand some products like whiskeys or cigars or cowboy boots or whatever it is. So I'll post some of the photos there from my photo shoots. And also I'll post some stuff from my movie sets if I'm on a set that day or whatever. And I've also posted a lot of stuff from my past movie making experiences. So go to Instagram if you want to check me out. It's at the Timothy Mac. So at the Timothy Mac, and give me a follow if you want to follow me. I'll follow you back, sure. And then IMDb. That's where all of my projects, not all of them, about 90% of them get posted up there. So go ahead and check it out. It's imdb.me/Timothy McLaughlin. And you can see all of the projects I'm working on or the ones that I've worked on in the past. And You can follow me there. Ask me questions. I love getting questions on Instagram. People send me a message, say, "Hey, man, what was it like with this guy, or what was it like with that actor?" So I'll be happy to respond to that. But those are the two main sites that you can see me on.
Right on, man. Well, I thank you for taking the time. I do mean it, man. We got to get you and your better half back at some point, because to get to talk to her about being one of the first rat ladies is something that our audience would definitely be like, "Oh shit, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
So
I'll see if I can. Get her pried away from her daily stuff that she does, and hopefully we can make that happen. So, see if your listeners want it happening, and we'll see if we can do that. Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, Tim, thank you very much for taking the time. Everybody, stay tuned on what he has got brewing up next for you, and we will definitely do it again, man.
Hey, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure, buddy.